John, how do you see the defense strategy working here? What are they trying to do?
I think they're trying to have it both ways. I think they're trying to make nice with David Pecker, and they're going to do the obvious. They're going to challenge his memory. They're going to point out that he has a non-prosecution agreement, so he has a motive to not go against the prosecution. But I think what they want to do is bring this back to Michael Cohen as much as they possibly can. And they're example after example, they're just getting started. For example, when David Pecker was concerned about violating campaign finance laws, so Michael Cohen says, oh, don't worry about it. Donald Trump has Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, in his pocket. Well, that was so false that I think they're going to come back and show not only was Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, not in Trump's pocket, but they had a terrible relationship, and Sessions refused to recuse himself in the Mueller investigation, and one thing after another. I think they're going to try and bring this back to Michael Cohen and away from David Pecker.
Jessica, we've heard so many other names come out in the prosecution's questioning of David Pecker, but also in the defense cross-examination, where they've got him to talk about all these other stories that they did that were not related to Trump, or stories that they quashed that could have been embarrassing for other famous people, again, not named Trump. Is the goal there to try to paint this picture that this was all just sort of standard practice?
They are. They're trying to diffuse the significance of the fact that these stories were killed on behalf of Trump by putting them in the context of this being an ongoing practice. But they're also specifically trying to diffuse the argument, which is necessary to the prosecution's theory of the case, that the scheme with respect to Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels was all about helping Trump's political campaign, because that's the crux of the charge, is that this was a scheme to basically disguise unlawful campaign contributions. And so by showing that AMI made these did these favors for other celebrities, it suggests that this was not for Trump in particular and not for Trump in association with his campaign. And so I think that when you see the defense focusing on Hope Hicks being in and out, right, that's to try to get at the idea that she was not there on behalf of the campaign in a significant way. That's where I see them going with trying to bring out inconsistencies about whether Hope Hicks was present or not. Because if she was involved in these discussions, that ties it to the campaign in a way that's really important.
Let's just back up for a second, because you're right. Hope Hicks is a discussion that they're having today, and her role in any of these potential meetings and conversations that took place at this time. On the other hand, they were talking about people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mark Wahlberg and Tiger Woods and others yesterday who have not been prosecuted for any of the allegations around their deals, allegedly, with AMI, with David Pecker's publications. So can you just, for our viewers, clarify what the line is there in terms of legal versus illegal as it relates to these catch and kill stories and deals that were to silence people?
Well, what makes the payments essentially on behalf of Donald Trump different from those other payments with respect to other celebrities is that they were made, at least the ones in 2016, in connection with or around, according to the prosecution's theory, his campaign, for the purpose of assisting his campaign. And with respect to most of those other celebrities, with the exception of Arnold Schwarzenegger, possibly when he was interested in running for governor of California, those other celebrities were not running for political office. So those schemes with respect to the stories concerning those celebrities don't implicate campaign finance laws. That's what makes them distinguishable and not really relevant for the prosecution's purposes, although the defense is clearly trying to muddy the waters.
I want to come back to something you said, John, about how one strategy is to try to sort of poke holes in David Pecker's memory or make it look like he doesn't have a really good memory. There was a little bit of a back and forth I'll share from the transcript yesterday where Trump's attorney, Bovee, says, quote, "There are things that you did not remember very well that you testified about today that you used other documents to refresh yourself on, correct?" Pecker answers, yes. So clearly the idea, challenge memory, challenge his credibility. Do you think that's effective?
It's minimally effective. I mean, they're suggesting that the prosecutor refreshed his memory, and he's saying what the prosecutor wants. But remember, all these other celebrities, you started to think, maybe this is the David Pecker show. With Schwarzenegger, for example, all we know is what was in the tabloid media, so we don't have any inside information. But it surely appeared that part of his motive was to protect his marriage, because we saw publicly that when this all came out about his mistress and the unborn and the child, that his marriage broke up. Well, I think they're going to be going there and suggesting with Trump that there were alternate motives and the people are not able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it was to influence the election.
But that piece was something that the prosecution got out in front of yesterday in its questioning of David Pecker, and perhaps they'll come back around after the cross-examination when they have a chance to do the rebuttal of sorts. But there's this other part of the transcript. Let me read. This was during the direct questioning by the prosecution. The prosecution asks, did Trump, ever say anything to you that made you think that his concern about these stories getting out was for his family rather than for his campaign? Pecker, I thought it was for the campaign. Prosecution, what makes you say that? Pecker, every time the conversations that I had with Michael Cohen with respect to both of these stories, his family was never mentioned. And the conversations that I had directly with Mr. Trump, his family wasn't mentioned. Jessica?
This is a key part of Pecker's testimony, again, to shore up the prosecution's theory that these payments that AMI made and that Michael Cohen made, really, which are the crux of the case, were campaign contributions that exceeded the amounts that an individual was permitted under law to donate to a political campaign. And Pecker is saying, yes, we made payments we were involved with stories with respect to Trump earlier in our association with him before he ran for office. And at those earlier times, Trump was concerned about protecting his family. But once it came time to be in the campaign, when we were in the campaign, Trump's concerns were all about the effect on his campaign prospects. And that's what, again, makes these payments, these stories different from all of those others.